the wedding had been perfect. Sarah Chen couldn't stop smiling as she scrolled through the photographer's digital previews on her laptop, reliving every moment of her special day just 3 weeks ago. The autumn ceremony at the historic Blackwood estate had been everything she dreamed of: golden leaves carpeting the grounds, candlelit reception in the restored ballroom, and Marcus looking more handsome than ever in his charcoal suit. "This one's beautiful," she murmured, clicking on a photo of them exchanging vows beneath the oak archway. The photographer had captured the exact moment Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, both of them glowing with joy. But as she clicked to the next image, her smile faltered. It was a wide shot of the ceremony, taken from the back of the seated guests. The composition was artistic rows of white chairs creating leading lines toward the couple at the altar, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. But something was wrong with the shadows. Behind Marcus, where his shadow should have been singular and defined, there was something else. A second form, taller and thinner, seemed to merge with his silhouette. Sarah leaned closer to the screen, squinting. It must be a trick of the light, maybe the officiant's shadow overlapping at an odd angle. She clicked to the next photo. This one was closer, a 3/4 shot of them holding hands during the ceremony. Again, that strange shadow anomaly behind Marcus. But now she could see it more clearly. It wasn't quite a shadow. It was darker, more substantial, as if someone in a black shroud was standing directly behind her husband, perfectly aligned with his movements. "Marcus," she called out, her voice catching slightly. "Can you come look at something?" "Just a minute, hun," he replied from the kitchen. She heard him puttering around, probably making his evening tea. Sarah's fingers trembled as she clicked through more photos. The shadow thing appeared in every single shot that included Marcus. During their first dance, there it was, its dark form seeming to embrace them both. In the cake-cutting photos, elongated fingers that weren't quite fingers hovering near the knife. In the reception shots, where Marcus laughed with his groomsmen, that tall, dark presence looming behind him like a possessive guardian, her stomach churned. She remembered the photographer, Janet Morrison, a well-regarded professional who'd shot hundreds of weddings. Surely she would have noticed something this obvious during editing. Sarah grabbed her phone and found Janet's contact. The phone rang once, twice. "Hello, Sarah. How are you enjoying the photos?" Janet's warm voice filled the line. "Janet, I'm looking at them now, and there's something odd. In all the photos with Marcus, there's this dark figure." Silence, then carefully. "Which photos are you referring to?" "All of them. Every shot with my husband has this shadow person behind him. Didn't you notice it when you were editing?" Another pause, longer this time. "Sarah, I delivered those photos 3 weeks ago. You're just now looking at them. We've been busy with the honeymoon and moving." "But that's not Janet. Can you look at your copies?" Image 47, the ceremony wide shot. She heard clicking on the other end. Then a sharp intake of breath. "That's not possible," Janet whispered. "I edited every single photo. I would have seen. Sarah, this wasn't there before. I swear to you, this was not there when I delivered these files." Sarah's hands were shaking now. "What do you mean it wasn't there before? I keep archival copies of everything. I'm looking at my original file right now, and it's clean. Just you and Marcus and your guests. But the file you have, Janet, you're scaring me. I think you should ask Marcus about this, about his family history. Sometimes in old families there are attachments. Attachments? What are you talking about?" But Janet had already hung up. Sarah stared at the screen, at photo after photo of her perfect wedding day, each one tainted by that dark presence. In some shots, she could almost make out features, or rather, the absence of features. Where a face should be, there was only deeper darkness, a void that seemed to pull light into itself. "Hey, babe, what did you want to show me?" Marcus appeared in the doorway, steam rising from his mug of chamomile tea. Sarah turned the laptop toward him. "Our wedding photos. There's something in them, something behind you." Marcus approached, that easy smile still on his face. But as his eyes focused on the screen, she watched the color drain from his complexion. The mug slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. "No," he breathed. "No, no, no. It wasn't supposed to follow me. I did everything right. The ceremony, the new name, the move across the country." "Marcus, what are you talking about?" He sank into the chair beside her, head in his hands. "My family. We don't talk about it. Haven't for generations. But there's something that attaches itself to the firstborn son when they come of age. A guardian, my grandmother called it, though that's too kind a word. A guardian, more like a parasite. It feeds on happiness, on love, on any strong positive emotion. My father had it, and his father before him. I thought if I changed my name, moved away, started fresh, it wouldn't find me. I thought marrying you, someone so full of light and joy, would somehow break its hold." Sarah felt cold despite the warm evening. "You knew about this and didn't tell me. How could I? Hey, by the way, my family has a hereditary demon that might show up to ruin our lives. You would have thought I was insane. So what does it want?" Marcus finally looked at her, and she saw tears in his eyes. "It wants what they all want, to feed, to grow stronger. And the more happiness it finds, the more it takes. My parents, they were happy once. Look at them now." Sarah thought of Marcus's parents, whom she'd met only once. They'd seemed hollow, going through the motions of life without any real emotion behind their eyes. She'd assumed it was just their personalities. But now, over the following days, Sarah became obsessed with the photos. She found herself scrolling through them repeatedly, tracking the figure's presence. It was growing clearer in each viewing, as if her attention was somehow feeding it, making it more real. She began to notice things in their apartment. Shadows that lingered too long in corners. The feeling of being watched when Marcus wasn't home. Their plants began to wilt despite proper care. Food spoiled faster than it should. The very air seemed to grow heavier. pressing down on them like a physical weight. Marcus grew withdrawn. He stopped smiling, stopped laughing at her jokes. When she reached for him in bed, he pulled away. "We can't," he whispered in the darkness. "It feeds on love, on connection. The less we feel, the less it can take." But Sarah was a fighter. She researched obsessively, diving into obscure forums and ancient texts. She learned about attachment spirits, about generational curses, about entities that existed in the spaces between joy and sorrow. One night, she found something, a thread on a paranormal forum, posted by someone whose username was simply Survivor 1973. They claimed to have broken a similar attachment through a ritual of transference, not destroying the entity, but shifting its focus to something else. Sarah printed out the instructions. It required a photograph, specifically the first photograph where the entity appeared. It required blood from the afflicted, and it required a willing vessel. "Absolutely not," Marcus said when she showed him. "I won't let you take this thing into yourself. I'm not going to. Read it carefully. We're not transferring it to a person." The ritual called for a photograph to be burned with specific herbs, while the afflicted person renounced all claim to joy, formally passing their capacity for happiness to the image itself. The entity, bound to feed on the subject's emotions, would follow that capacity into the photograph. Once trapped in the image, it could be destroyed. They prepared everything carefully. Sarah found the herbs at a specialty shop downtown, the elderly proprietor giving her a knowing look when she listed what she needed. They waited for the new moon, as the instructions specified. Marcus pricked his finger, letting 3 drops of blood fall onto the wedding photo, the wide shot where they'd first noticed the figure. As he spoke the words of renunciation, the temperature in the room plummeted. The shadows in the corners began to writhe and stretch, reaching toward them like grasping fingers. The photo in Marcus's hands grew hot, then cold, then hot again. Sarah watched in horror as the dark figure in the photograph began to move. It turned away from Marcus's image, seeming to look directly out of the photo at them. Its void face split open in what might have been a scream or a smile, then smoke. The photo burst into flames, not the orange fire they'd lit, but a cold blue flame that gave off no heat. Marcus dropped it into the metal bowl they'd prepared, and they watched as it burned to ash in seconds. The apartment fell silent. The oppressive weight that had been pressing down on them for weeks suddenly lifted. Marcus looked at Sarah, and for the first time in days, she saw life in his eyes. Is it gone?" Sarah pulled up the wedding photos on her laptop. In every image, Marcus stood alone. No dark figure behind him. Just her beautiful husband on their perfect day. They held each other and wept tears of relief, of joy, of released terror. For the first time since viewing the photos, Sarah felt like she could breathe. But later that night, as Marcus slept peacefully beside her, Sarah couldn't shake a nagging feeling. She opened her laptop one more time, scrolling through the now clean photos. There was one she hadn't checked, a candid shot Janet had taken during the reception setup, before the guests arrived. It showed the empty ballroom, elegant and waiting. Sarah's blood turned to ice. In the center of the dance floor stood the dark figure, no longer attached to Marcus, but freestanding and solid. It faced the camera directly, and though it still had no features, Sarah could sense its anticipation. She checked the photo's metadata. It had been taken 3 hours before their ceremony, before the entity had appeared behind Marcus, before it had attached itself to him, which meant it hadn't been following Marcus at all. It had been waiting. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened her email and began typing a message to Janet. You asked about Marcus's family history, but I think you should have asked about the venue. What happened at Blackwood Estate? What's the history you didn't tell us? As she hit send, a new email appeared in her inbox. The sender was listed as unknown, the subject line empty. With shaking fingers, she opened it. Inside was a single photograph, one she'd never seen before. It showed the Blackwood Estate ballroom, but from decades ago. The image was sepia-toned and slightly blurred, but she could make out couples dancing, women in 1950s gowns, men in sharp suits, and threading between them all, that same dark figure, touching a shoulder here, brushing against a couple there. In the corner of the photo, someone had written in fountain pen, Blackwood Estate Grand Reopening Gala, 1953, 17 marriages celebrated. None lasted the year. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Janet. I just saw your email. Oh God, Sarah, get out of that apartment. The entity doesn't attach to bloodlines. It attaches to unions consecrated on its ground. Every couple married at Blackwood for the last 70 years. Sarah, it feeds on the dissolution of love. It doesn't just take happiness. It waits for it to grow, then destroys it from within. But even as Sarah read the text, she felt it, that cold weight settling back over the apartment, heavier than before. She looked at Marcus sleeping beside her, at the man she loved more than life itself, and wondered how long they had before that love became their destruction. In the darkness of their bedroom, a shadow that shouldn't exist began to grow. The entity had come home.